The Drug Enforcement Administration announced a massive drug buzz connected to a major Mexican cartel. 19 people have been charged, including Washingtonians and foreign nationals. What if I told you that a cartel network based 100 miles away in Mexico managed to plant its roots deep inside Washington state using semi-trucks, criers, and even American citizens to flood communities with enough fentanyl to wipe out Seattle and Tacoma combined? Would you believe cartels have set up shop not just near the border but right in America's backyard? Well, that's exactly what federal agents just exposed. Hi. Before we continue, one click on the subscribe button fuels all the effort behind this and every future video. Let's break it down. How the DEA dismantled Seattle's deadliest drug ring and indicted its cartel leaders. The Drug Enforcement Administration has just announced one of the largest cartel busts in Washington state's history. A network connected directly to Mexico's notorious Sinaloa cartel has been taken down with 19 individuals facing federal charges. This operation wasn't just a random raid. It was the culmination of an 18-month-long investigation involving wiretaps, surveillance, and the coordination of multiple federal and local agencies. At the center of this network were two brothers operating from Mexico, Rosario Abel Wayne Camargo Bolaños and Francisco Fernando Camargo Bolaños. These men orchestrated a supply chain stretching from cartel strongholds in Sinaloa through California and Upinto, Western Washington. Using semi-trucks, commercial flights, and a network of American and Mexican operatives, they were able to flood communities with methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, and most dangerously, fentanyl. The numbers from this bust are staggering. Federal investigators seized 46.65 lb of methamphetamine, 269 pounds of fentanyl, 23 pounds of cocaine, and 6.4 lb of heroin. To put that in perspective, the fentanyl alone was enough to produce 6.9 million lethal dose. That is enough poison to kill every single person living in the Seattle-Tacoma metro area. But the seizures didn't stop there. In just the last 36 hours leading up to the announcement, agents recovered nearly 6 pounds of fentanyl, 15 pounds of meth, 60 pounds of marijuana, heroin, cocaine, 23 firearms, and over. Alongside the drugs and money, federal agents confiscated firearms to 5 defendants who already had criminal records or immigration violations. These weren't small-time street dealers. This was a paramilitary-style operation embedded in our community. One of the most critical figures in this network was a 44-year-old Mexican national named Isabel Ber Zapin, a commercial truck driver. Zapin was responsible for moving enormous loads of drugs along the I-5 corridor, turning a commercial vehicle into a weapon of mass destruction against American community. He was first arrested in January 2024 on state charges, but is now facing serious federal indictments as part of this sweeping takedown. The cartel's strategy wasn't limited to targeting big cities like Seattle and Tacoma. Their reach extended into smaller communities, spreading north into Whidbey Island and Arlington, and south into Lacey. This demonstrates how cartels intentionally embed themselves across both urban and suburban America, ensuring their poison reaches as many people as possible. The distribution network was a mix of Mexican nationals and American citizens, proving once again how deeply these cartels infiltrate local communities. Carriers like Jose Maya Ortiz and Juan Carlos Garcia Orales worked directly with cartel leadership, while U.S. citizens such as Carmen Davis of Everett, Taylor Johnson of Shoreline, and Israel Davis also of Shoreline acted as redistributors. These were Americans selling cartel drugs to their own neighbors, profiting off the misery of their community. The fentanyl crisis in Washington shows exactly why this takedown was so critical. In 2023, Washington recorded 3,477 overdose deaths, with fentanyl involved in 76% of those deaths. King County alone surpassed 1,000 fentanyl overdose deaths. CDC data shows Washington had the fourth highest increase in drug overdose deaths among all U.S. states, with a 10% rise from April 2023 to April early 2025. Data shows the situation is worsening, with some counties seeing deaths more than double recent average. These aren't just numbers. These are parents, children, and friends whose lives were cut short by fentanyl flooding from operations like this one. And some of the details from the arrests highlight the sinister nature of this ring. During one raid, 52-year-old Everett resident Aaron Tapp was found with over 2 kilograms of fentanyl pills. Another suspect, 57-year-old John Hardman, had a brick of fentanyl stamped with swastikas and $50,000 in cash at his home. A drug trafficker distributing poison marked with hate symbols. It shows just how twisted this business has become. Even more alarming is the presence of repeat offenders and illegal reentry. One defendant, Jose Felix German, a 34-year-old Mexican citizen, had been deported in 2013 but was back in the U.S. working as a money courier and cartel co-conspirator. This case underscores the reality that without secure borders, deported criminals return to resume their deadly operation. This entire bust was carried out under Operation Take Back America at dismantling cartels and transnational criminal organizations. It's a clear example of why a strong coordinated federal response is essential when you're dealing with organizations that move hundreds of pounds off narcotics, launder millions of dollars, and arm themselves with dozens of firms. It takes the combined resources of the DEA, FBI, Homeland Security, and local police to bring them down. The 37-count indictment against these individuals includes charges of conspiracy, possession with intent to distribute, and firearm violations. Some of the defendants now face mandatory minimum sentences of 10 years, while others could be looking at decades or even life in federal prison. That's accountability. That's justice for the thousands of Washington families who have lost loved ones to fentanyl overdoses. But let's be clear, this isn't one network. The Sinaloa cartel and its rival, the Jalisco New Generation cartel, continue to run permanent distribution systems across the U.S. Seattle may be safer today, but other cities are still under threat. These cartels are not merely smuggling drugs across the border. They're building long-term infrastructure in America, recruiting locals, and poisoning communities from the inside out. This Seattle takedown is proof that the strategy works when our federal government under strong leadership commits fully to fighting these cartels, but it also proves how dangerous the situation has become. With nearly 7 million lethal doses seized in this single operation, imagine how much fentanyl has already slipped through and is still out there on the streets. That's why the fight must continue with full force. This operation was a victory. 19 cartel-linked traffickers behind bars. Millions of lethal doses of fentanyl taken off the streets and a cartel network dismantled in Washington state. But here's the bigger question. How do we stop these cartels from rebuilding and targeting other communities across America? The DEA, IC, and law enforcement can't do it alone. They need public awareness and support. If you stand with the heroes protecting America, make sure to like this video, share it with others, drop a comment with your thoughts, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more coverage of this fight for our nation's safety.